Hello and welcome to my big backyard. I thought I would give a quick tour of everything that's going on here in my backyard right now. Today is September 24th, so almost the end of September, and it's almost time for me to clear up the stuff that's out here and start bringing it in for the winter. And I've cleaned out my vegetable garden already, as many people have seen, and I don't actually think I've shown anybody how the meadow did all summer long. So let's take a quick look and see what I have here. I did not clean up anything for this, so you can see also where I junk stuff. Sorry, that's just how life is. So anyway, we'll start right here, right near the back door. I have some nice little succulent gardens that I've changed a couple of times this summer. I've tried to keep this watered. I started it with unrooted cuttings, and now, you know, it's a little crispy and some of the stuff looks a little wilty, but I think that it's turned into something eventually. I have some other cool plants here. This one's really neat. I will put an image of it up. Well, it's hard to see because it's dark back here when it flowers, but this is a pretty cool Caldex plant here. It didn't even put out green shoots until maybe a month ago, so it's a kind of a odd growing plant that stays dormant a long time. So down here we've got some cacti and some succulents. This aloe here is new to me this year. I got that one at a plant swap, and the same with this little aloe down here. They both came from a plant exchange. As you can see, my baby mammalias are doing pretty well, and then my other cacti are just kind of there. The pineapple I planted earlier this year is looking healthy. I may have to upgrade that pot to something a little bit bigger, but I might make it wait out the winter inside first. This little planter turned out to be pretty cute. Everything in it is still alive, which is nice. These Peruvian, well, I don't know if they're Peruvian blue torch cactuses, but these blue torch cactuses here have grown a couple of inches this year, which is nice. And there's a lot of nice new growth, as indicated by the dark spines on the top of that cactus as well. Some of my stuff hasn't fared quite as well. I have narrowed down my seedlings much more. These are some of my seedlings that I had growing, and they've grown a ton this summer, but then other seedlings like this don't really appear to have grown at all, so I'm not entirely even sure that these are alive. I'll be whittling down this collection a lot more as I put things away for the year. It's evening, so don't mind the sun. But as you can see, I have a lot of good growth on some of these seedlings finally. I don't know that I'll be trying grafting again. As you can see by my grafted cacti back there, you remember I grafted these a year ago, and they're not really that much bigger than the seedlings, and these seedlings grew a lot this summer. I mean, they weren't very big when they started, but the grafts aren't that impressive to me. Either they're not very successful or I'm not treating them right. It probably does have something to do with me, but that doesn't mean I'm going to try again. Here I have a recent acquisition. This is another plumeria, which is the little flower that they use to make Hawaiian leis out of. I got this from a friend, and this one should be white. I already have a yellow one, and you may have seen that in my videos, but this one's here. I just have it out here rooting. I thought it was rooted, and then when I repotted it, I must have broken that one little root off, which is crazy. But that sometimes happens. They're very delicate. Some other cool plants back here, as usual. And some things that I probably should clean up and eliminate as well. Moving over here to this shelf, we've got my cactus collection up here. And we have this Stapelia with a stink bug on it. Nobody likes stink bugs. They're bad for everything. This one's bloomed this year, but I don't think I took any pictures of it this year. Stapelia giganta. This cactus hasn't done much this year. It's kind of skinny. I'm not sure why it's skinny and why it hasn't grown. I have some aloes down here on the second shelf, and of course my trichocereus down here in the middle shelf. These did well. I had a couple of things bloom this year, and I had a couple also form buds that didn't do anything at all. Like those buds they've been like that for quite a while, and they've never grown. They haven't like wilted away either, so who knows what's going to happen. And of course some echinopsis down here. A couple more aloes. The spectacular one, this is this one right here, which is blooming for me. Look how beautiful that is. Hummingbirds like that kind of flower. I think if it was in a just slightly different location, or if it wasn't so late in the fall, it would be attracting hummingbirds, but I'm fairly certain that the hummingbirds have kind of left and gone home. And I've got some other things down here that may or may not be doing so well. This is my plumeria that I had before. If you watched my plumeria video last spring where I pruned a 9-foot tall plumeria down and I took cuttings, these are the 3 cuttings that I kept from that 9-foot plumeria. And when I get around to the front of the house, I'll show you how the stump turned out. If you remember, there wasn't much left to it. It was just a stick, and I'm pleased to show you what's going on with that. I was given this banana plug, and it's grown pretty well. I'm sure if it was in the ground it would have grown better, but they don't survive the winter, so I put it in that pot, and I'll plan on taking it in for the winter. My aloe was mistreated mightily this summer, but it looks okay now. And basically some other things. Over here we have these desert roses, which I grew from seed, and some other interesting plants. My jungle cactus. If you remember, this one flowered this year for me, and so did that one that is up there now. This has been interesting. This is my monkey tail cactus, and to be honest, it hasn't done anything this year. I have seen no new growth on it. It hasn't put out, it's just sat there all year long, and I'm not sure exactly why. But that's okay. This is turmeric. I bought this turmeric as roots in the cold shelf of one of those Asian grocery stores, and I planted it just for fun, and look at that. So I'll have to take that in soon. It does not like cold weather. Many people may be wondering about my citrus trees. My lemon tree is fully leafed out, but it hasn't had any flowers or anything like that at all. This particular mandarin here is finally leafed out and even branched some, but I don't have any flowers on it. I think that the broken leaves and the cut up leaves are the result of leafcutter bees. I hope that's what it is. I haven't seen any pests on here at all, so I'm assuming it was the leafcutter bees. And if so, well, they can have it, because they are great pollinators and they will use those to make their little homes and winter over for the year. This other mandarin has done really well. Check this out. I don't know if anybody remembers what these look like when they first started forming, but these mandarins have grown quite a bit this summer. This is a Shiranui mandarin. I have a second one back here. Now the one problem I had, and I've had it repeatedly this summer on this mandarin tree, has been mealybugs. That's a problem. I've been coming out here with a paintbrush and painting alcohol on these to try to get rid of them. Right now I don't see any. Hopefully some of this cold weather also helps to get them away. I would treat the tree for mealybugs more thoroughly, like with something systemic to really kill them, but there's fruit on it and I want that fruit. The same thing with my lime tree. If everybody remembers, I got a couple nice limes last year, and these limes are looking good as well. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, I think there's 5 limes on here, which is terrific. The only issue is mealybugs, and also I think there's been a nutrient issue too. I'm not sure why, but the leaves are starting to yellow here. I don't know if it has chlorosis or something like that. I'm not really familiar with that. I have to figure out a way to get them more iron or something else. I have really no idea what exactly it needs, but I'll try to figure it out and treat it well when I move it inside. Around to this other side, if everybody remembers, I bought an avocado in the spring, and here's my avocado. It looks great. There aren't any bugs on it or anything like that. It has a lot of new growth that you can see coming out. It looks beautiful. And there's no sign of like insect damage or anything like that on it. I did just repot this yesterday. So it's got the same pot now as these other, so it's a wider pot, but it's equal depth to what it was in the soil before. It doesn't have any less soil coverage. Now onto my cactus garden. Look how beautiful this is. These succulents look amazing. And you can see my cactuses hiding in there. There are quite a few small cacti throughout. I'm gonna do a full cactus garden video, I think, shortly, and show more of what's in here and how it did for the year and what flowered and what didn't. But it's pretty beautiful. I'm pretty pleased with my cactus garden. We'll see how it goes over the winter. So I'm gonna pause this now and move on to another portion of my garden. All right, coming around the side yard, I didn't think of this before, but I have, as you can see, my maple trees are doing quite nicely, starting to change colors. My crepe myrtles look nice. I'm pretty sure that this crepe myrtle gets powdery mildew every year. I think that's what this white stuff is. I'm not sure, and I'm also not sure what to do about it. But it looks beautiful. It has nice flowers, and I really like that dark colored leaf. So we'll just see what happens and how it does over time. This crepe myrtle has been impressing me the entire time I've had it. I think it's a more standard, normal variety, but these flowers are beautiful, and the tree just looks wonderful. I'm gonna get into all of my crepe myrtles in the spring again and cut back the branches. I really want to make sure that these are established as being taller, narrower, but only having maybe 4 or 5 trunks, because I really like the look of the trunks at the bottom, and I don't want these to get weedy and bushy looking. I want them to have more of a multi-trunk tree look. I moved my sage pot over here from the garden. I'm just going to leave it there and see what happens. Up on the porch, I have this little agave which I grew from seed. It's the same as the agaves that I grew from seed that are in the cactus garden back there, but this guy is much smaller, and I think that's because I keep him in a pot and he gets less water and less sunshine. And I also have these sempervivums in the pot. My dragon fruit plant is doing quite well. I need to get more of these bars so I can stake this up a little bit better. But yeah, I'm pretty pleased with the dragon fruit. We'll see how it does over the winter. I have this nice pot down here. Well, I was in the middle of videoing and it stopped, so I started again. So now I'm looking at this really pretty echinacea. Obviously it looks like crap right now, but it was a really, I think this was powwow wild berry or some color like that. I have this agave or yucca. I think this is a mini yucca growing in here, and I have tons of lemon coral sedum. This stuff does really well here. So hopefully the echinacea comes back every year, and this pot can just be a really pretty pot of stuff permanently. This morning I repotted my ginger. This ginger was growing in a much smaller pot, and I wanted to put it in a nice big pot, make it nice and healthy, because I'm going to bring it in the house for the winter and then bring it back out in the spring. And here it is. This is the plumeria that I had been talking about before. Remember last spring I had a 9-foot plumeria tree and I cut it in half. I took all the cuttings off of it, and this spring this is what I have. I've got 1, 2, 4 new branches on this tree, and that looks fantastic. I'm really excited to let it grow like this. I'm happy I was able to just keep it in its original pot. What's kind of funny is that this in the pot is basil. It planted itself there. I did not plant this basil, but I'm not going to get rid of basil where it wants to grow. It can grow anywhere it likes. I have this other Japanese maple tree here. This is a coral bark Japanese maple, and it looks fantastic in the winter. The bark is all red, but isn't it the weirdest looking tree? It just looks so messy. I don't want to cut it back right now because I want it to have a nice shape. I'm kind of just waiting for late winter and then I'll try to shape it better. But the new growth on this is just weird. It's low in the middle and it's got these long spindly things growing out. I just think it looks really weird. So it's gonna get cut back quite a bit and I'm not entirely sure why it is the way it is. And then I don't know what this dead branch is in the middle either, but I'll clean it up eventually. I did a major chop job on my front garden. If anybody has seen previous footage of my front garden, it was full of iris and also this Siberian iris. And as you can see, I've taken the Siberian iris, split it all up into tiny, tiny pieces and spread it out evenly so it can all grow back again. Behind the Siberian iris planted in the ground is Crocosmia, which gets really, really tall, and I love the red flowers. Then in front we have purple Siberian iris. I tucked in some ground cover in a couple of places, and I had this echinacea, which I had grown from seed, and it was just growing in a pot and not really doing anything. I don't know what color it is, but I decided to just pop it in the ground here and let it live forever. And over here on the end is the peony that's been growing here for a couple of years. I did not want to remove this. I like it a lot, and I was able to get a free peony root from a friend at a plant exchange, and I planted it on the other end by the steps. That way this flower bed is going to be balanced with a peony on either end, even though they probably will be different colors. No idea what color the one I'm getting is. And yeah, we'll see how this flower bed does this next year. I plan on adding some ground cover to the front, doing some things to try to keep the weeds down. Yeah. The other thing I changed is in my front flower bed, you see the pile up there by the mailbox. The pile by the mailbox is Siberian iris that I removed to give away. And the mailbox has been completely cleaned out from around. I put in some Crocosmia bulbs and a peony and some random other bulbs that I had that I didn't know what they were. Now over here to the vegetable garden, as you can see, I've cleaned it all up, minus the flowers that were still there and the peppers. For the winter, I'm going to leave these peppers on to get a bit bigger and to ripen. The peppers get to go until the peppers are done. I think these are almost done. They're yellowing. They don't like the cold weather, but there's still some life in some of these others. Here is one of the prettiest things I've got. This is a Thai blue butterfly pea, which is a double flower. It's gorgeous. I have at least one seed pod growing from it right there. And what I'm hoping is that I can collect more seeds and grow more of these next year. I probably won't plant it here. It really didn't do well this summer. This is as big as it's gotten. It was too shaded by the other plants that were in here. And so I'm not going to plant it here next year. I'm going to plant it over by my shed probably and let it grow more like a flower than a vegetable. You don't eat it anyway. You can use it to make tea. I've also left growing my black-coated runner beans. I have no real intent of eating these either. They are an edible bean. But the hummingbirds like the flowers and I like the flowers, and I just grew them because they're pretty. So I'll probably grow these next year with the butterfly pea. Down here, there's some lettuce I planted earlier this year as ground cover. There's still some basil, which I cut back majorly. It was seriously this tall. It was huge. And the marigolds that I planted to help keep the bugs down. Now, one thing you do see in here starting to come up are some of my winter vegetables. These carrots have been planted for a while. They're kind of randomly planted. I left a carrot in the ground to go to seed, and these carrots are from that carrot. So hopefully they're a nice orange Nucarota carrot, because that's what I planted there. We'll find out. So that's my earliest winter vegetables that I have planted. As you can see, my nasturtiums are still blooming. Still some more basil. In here I've planted beets and kohlrabi and kale and more carrots. So there will be plenty of that. I can't believe this bean is still going. I thought this was done way earlier this year. I collected the beans from it. This is a calypso bean. It is the only one that I planted, so I didn't get enough beans to really do anything with. Although I still have the beans, and I will definitely pick these, and I'll just throw them into chili at some point. And of course, these marigolds are beautiful. So I'm quite pleased with that. They'll get seed heads on them, and I will save them and plant them elsewhere. So that's all for the front of the house. Let's go elsewhere. And we're headed into the backyard. I really do love this willow tree. I just like walking under it. I do need to trim it a little bit. It's not the best thing in the world to mow under, but I mow the grass around it all the time. So we're back here to what I consider the wild section of the yard. It's not really even my yard, but it's where I put, I add plants here that I can't find room for in my yard, and I have nowhere to, I don't want to throw away because I like them too much. Like this is a whole giant patch of crocosmia. It looks beautiful when it blooms, and it can stay and spread here all at once. I'll be very pleased about that. And then of course we have the meadow. This year's meadow didn't do as well as I wanted. I mean, if you look at this stuff here, this is all ragweed. I have a whole giant patch of ragweed, and in the middle of it, well, this section appears to be nothing but that. I don't see anything worth saving in here that I really want to have anyway. So what I'm planning to do is mowing this down and tarping it and letting this whole section here be solarized, so that I can start over here with some other things next year. And that mostly goes also for this section here. This middle section, same thing. There's not a lot of redeeming value in the stuff that's growing here. There is this one zinnia that popped up on the edge, but really there's some ragweed, some goldenrod type stuff. This stuff's okay, but it's really not my favorite meadow flowers, and if I can plant other things here by getting rid of this, I will. I tried to do that last year, but I didn't really kill everything off, and the problem is that all of this really tall, raggy stuff comes up, and it doesn't allow you to, it grows so fast that nothing else can grow. So everything I wanted to grow, like down here on the edge, you can see that I did have some, this is echinacea, coneflowers, and I have coneflower seeds here, and I'll rescue some of those before I kill this off, but this has got to go. Over on this side, I have trees to get rid of. I'll mow. The whole meadow is going to get mowed, but not all of it's going to get tarped. I only want to tarp the portions that don't have things in them that I want to save. I'm going to let parts of it be wild and parts of it not. I have these really pretty, I think they're asters of some kind here. These are gorgeous, and the butterflies love them, so that's nice. Along this middle section here, you can see the orange there is a sulfur cosmos. There's a zinnia around here too, and lots of these black-eyed Susans, we call them. They're a Rudbeckia. And all of these seed heads are coneflowers from this year. So the more the merrier. I want more of these to come up. I definitely will not be tarping this section or doing anything else to it. I may come and try to get rid of some of the ragweed before it completely goes to seed. But I may not. Parts of this are going to be wild, and parts of this are going to be a little bit more controlled until I spread everything out and get what I can get. Most of the plants that I just planted in here didn't really do much this year. Here's another color of that aster, and there's a bee. Well, I just scared him off. There's another bee. So you can see the pollinators love this stuff, and I don't want to get rid of anything that's really good for the pollinators. So everything will get mowed, but not everything will get tarped. So, not sure what this is. Little white daisies. Anyway, in spite of being all weeds, essentially, the meadow has been pretty. I have no complaints. I think as it ages, it will get better. Up here in the front of it, in the middle of the season, I killed back a patch of ragweed and planted cosmos and zinnias. And I'd really like to have more cosmos and zinnias next year. That's my goal, to have more colorful flowers scattered throughout the meadow, even if there's a lot of other things growing in here. Anyway, I know I haven't updated anybody on the meadow at all this year, so there it is, your meadow update. Next time you see it, it might be mowed down. As we work away from the meadow, you come across the side flower bed. This one is designed to be kind of wild, but kind of maintained. I don't know, I'm lazy, so kind of maintained is about what it gets. I do like to add things to it. One of the things that just grew in here naturally are these ground cherries. I don't know if you can eat these or not. I really don't know anything about them. So I might have to look something up related to them. If wild ground cherries are like a tomatillo or something, I have no idea. They look like they would be. I've got some cannas back there that I got at a plant exchange. The one that had a flower this year is red. I don't know what color these others are. I heard that they were orange, but they didn't bloom for me. So who knows? So I've got, this is what, agastache, I think, or hyssop here. And it's really pretty, and that'll come back every year, as well as other hyssop. They're two different colors. I planted a free peony root right here, so we'll see if it grows next year. And I have two different bee balm plants. I was hoping to get a second blooming out of these bee balm. I cut them back after the first bloom, but they're still alive, but they haven't bloomed again. But I think it's partly due to the weather. It's been kind of dry here for most of the summer. So I have some lilies back here. This is my lilac tree. The lilac didn't bloom for me this year, but it was getting established. So maybe next year I'll actually get blossoms on my lilac tree. That would be cool. As you can see, this is lobelia. It's still blooming a little bit, but isn't it nice? You get to see everything after the fact. When everything's dead, that's when I'm showing it to you. Hydrangea summer crest. As you can see, my hydrangea flowers are long since done. The plant itself is doing okay though, so hopefully it does well this winter and just comes back better than before. And there I have a hollyhock that grew its first year and bloomed right there. I don't know if it went to seed or if it was able to spread itself. I would appreciate it if it was. So I bought 4 new irises this year. 1, 2, 3, and 4 right there. It'll be fun to see those come up next year. And interestingly enough, my poor pathetic snapdragons are still doing okay. I hear that snapdragons like the cold or cooler air. These look leggy and pathetic, but who knows. And I was able to get myself some, what is that plant called? Can't think of it right now. Did I write it down? No, I didn't write it down. What did I? Oh, red hot poker flowers. These are red hot pokers. So by next year, they should be established enough to bloom for me, and I really like how they look. And the last thing that's in here of interest is that I planted a pawpaw tree, and hopefully it survives the winter and comes back nicely. I just did that for fun. I like the idea of growing the fruits that are native in the area. It just sounds like fun to me. Whether I like to eat it or I don't, we'll find out. I have a fig cutting inside that I'm hoping grows, and I'll be able to plant a fig tree. I don't even know if I actually like figs. My butterfly bush looks pretty as well. I will cut it back to a more even shape later on. And I have lots of seeds that I could collect on these echinaceas. And another peony. This is the only second peony, one that actually grows for me. Last year I bought this anemone, and as you can see, it likes its location and is doing really well here. I had a second one on the other side, but that one didn't make it through last winter. So I'm really pleased with this one, and it's going to grow as long as it does. One of the plants that disappointed me this year and how well it did was this black-eyed Susan vine. It pretty much did nothing. They took forever to get started, and they barely bloomed. I might have seen 2 flowers on it. I'll try again next year, but this is one of the locations where I think I'm going to plant the beans next year, and the butterfly peas. I think that they'll look terrific climbing up on this trellis, up the side of the shed, and they'll get plenty of sun in this location. I have another echinacea here and here. These were already growing here, and because I bought them as established plants. Yeah, I just stuck that sedum piece in the ground. I'm not sure it's going to root enough to grow here, but if it does, it does, and I'll be very pleased. Oh, look, some fungus. This is my viburnum that I had planted here. It's called a tandoori orange viburnum. It flowered for me this spring, but I got near 0 berries, and that's because I don't have the matching viburnum. You have to have a male and a female viburnum, and so it means I have to go buy a cardinal candy viburnum to put somewhere nearby so that this will be pollinated in the spring. So except for the fact that I'm not spending any money right now, I would buy one. So I'm just gonna leave it alone, and eventually someday I'll buy one. Back here, of course, are my hostas. It's really dark back in this corner, so I never have to worry about much. I also planted some bleeding heart back here, which you can't see now. Hopefully it comes back in the spring, as well as some lily of the valley. All of those things like the shade. So this will be someday maybe filled up with green. Who knows? Yeah, so coming along here, underneath, we're almost to the front of the house. We're underneath my redbud tree. I've got my oak leaf hydrangea, which is going to be beautiful someday when it gets big enough. This thing started out like as 1 leaf in a pot that I got for Christmas 2 years ago. So it's taken quite a while to establish itself, but it's still alive. Columbine back here, and of course my hellebore. So my hellebore made it through the winter, it made it through the summer, so I think I'm okay in saying that this is an established hellebore, and I won't have to worry about losing that one. So along the side here, I just have irises, which you can see are kind of dead and falling, and as well as crocosmia. I did get some free gladiola bulbs at one point, and those have been planted in here, and hopefully they will grow up here next year. Another thing I may have to do is lift some of these irises. I planted a lot of these things a little bit too deep, and irises like to be very close to the surface. I discovered that about them, and so I'm going to have to lift some of them to get them to bloom well, but we'll see what happens. Anyway, that appears to be it. The entire tour of my garden, except, well, there's my tower of strawberries, as you can see, is the last thing to go here. So I've got some alyssum that I grew in the empty spots where the strawberries died, but I do have strawberries, and if I remember correctly, I have one little strawberry that I can pick off of here and potentially eat. It was tasty. Actually, it was really, really sweet. Anyway, I'm hoping that my strawberries do well in here in the winter. I'm probably going to take some of these runners and hope that I can establish them in some of the empty spots, that they root in and start to grow new plants, because I'd really like a lush, full container of strawberries. But we'll see how it does. Anyway, thank you for stopping by my big backyard. I hope you enjoyed the tour, and that's it. Have a wonderful evening.